My work takes many forms. Sometimes I'm in rooms with leadership teams, facilitating hard conversations, creating policies, building roadmaps. Sometimes I'm facilitating team offsites, helping groups figure out their strengths, learn how to work better together, and communicate more effectively. And sometimes my work is very quiet. Sometimes I sit in rooms and Zooms and sometimes cafes, slowly, carefully helping people unlock parts of themselves. The emotional, the silent parts that they've been taught to put away because they didn't belong. These people, my clients, were raised in a world that taught them that anger doesn't belong in the workplace, vulnerability doesn't belong in a relationship, and compassion doesn't belong in leadership. I help them slowly, safely bring these parts of themselves to the surface so that we can explore them together, make sense of them, give them love and acceptance, and then integrate them into the way that they show up at work, for their careers, and sometimes for their relationships and their families. You see, part of what creates the chasm between our inner and our outer world is this idea that home and life are separate from work. They're not. Our lives happen in chapters, not in boxes. Everything works together to make a life whole. Work, family, play, creativity, money, health. It's all part of one whole picture. And these quiet, challenging moments, this is some of my favorite type of work. Because it allows me to hold space for the moments that I believe make a real difference in people's lives, in their relationships, in their workplaces, and in their communities. Today, I'm going to tell you a story of a client. I haven't done this before on the podcast, but I asked for his permission specifically. He was happy to provide it so long as nothing identifying him was shared. We'll call him Alex, which obviously is not his real name. Alex is an angry man. He has a lot of anger built up and contained within him. He does an excellent job masking it when he's in one-on-one meetings with his executive team, in the boardroom, and at home with his wife and 3 kids. Alex has done such a fantastic job masking this part of himself that he's forgotten that it exists. But sometimes it shows up without Alex's full awareness. And if you didn't understand what was happening, you'd misread his anger. You'd think it was an ill-timed joke, lack of the ability to read the room. You might write it off as ambition or strong leadership. See, Alex has forgotten about his anger because he's been disguising it in very creative ways, again, without his conscious awareness. His team says he's a really nice guy, but doesn't know how or when to tell a joke. It makes things awkward at work sometimes. He expects a lot. He's a demanding leader. But he always makes light of conversations. Alex's wife had an affair 2 years ago, and this came up in our 8th session. I noticed he said it very matter-of-factly, like there was no emotion in his voice. He said he understood why she would cheat because he worked so much and she needed attention, which he didn't have time to give her. I asked him how he processed the news when he got it. He said that he did some breathing exercises he learned at a wellness weekend, and then he left the house. And he'd been spending nights in a hotel room because, as he said it to me, he couldn't stand to see her face. In one of our sessions, Alex mentioned that his wife said to him that she cheated because their relationship lacked passion. This made my ears perk up. You see, Alex started working with me after his boss, the CEO of his company, told him he needed more passion, or pizzazz, as he put it. The CEO recognized Alex's knack for bringing levity into any situation, but wanted him to demonstrate more focus, more intensity, and visible drive. I reminded Alex of his boss's comments, and then I wondered, what is the relationship between passion and anger? You see, anger and passion draw from the same intense source of energy. The difference is in how it's channeled. When directed with intention and vulnerability, that energy becomes passion, which is the fuel for creation, purpose, and forward movement. When it's driven by fear or a need for control, the same energy turns into anger. Alex had shared with me that he came from a family that made sure he always respected women. He had once said on a call something to the effect of how his parents would never be okay if they ever found out that he was expressing any kind of anger towards a woman, or towards anyone, to be honest. He had made several comments like this one. Okay, let's unpack this. When you suppress your anger, you're not just suppressing an emotion. You're suppressing the energy behind it. Anger is just one possible behavioral expression of that energy. And that same energy is what others experience as passion, drive, or intensity. Because Alex had learned early on that expressing anger was unacceptable, he did his best to not allow himself to access that energy at all. It stayed kind of compressed inside him with nowhere to go. And energy that isn't expressed doesn't just disappear. It finds other outlets. With Alex, it showed up as ill-timed humor, unspoken, unrealistic expectations of his team. And coaching isn't about eliminating anger. It's about alchemizing it, learning how to transform that raw energy into a passion that serves rather than sabotages. This is where coaching and sometimes therapy can be really powerful tools. Suppressing anger can also result in passion being suppressed. Remember, it's the same energy we're working with. So it wasn't a surprise that Alex's wife felt there was passion lacking in their relationship, or that his boss felt like he didn't have enough pizzazz in his leadership or enough drive. Alex and I have been working on understanding how he relates to this energy, how to recognize it as it moves through him, how to observe it without judgment, and how to recognize when it's moving towards self-protection or harm versus when it can be used to fuel a purpose. My job is to create the space for him to experiment safely with these expressions, to play, to notice, to evaluate, and then to intentionally channel that energy towards the outcomes he wants to create in his leadership and his life. This doesn't just happen with Alex. This happens with all of us. And anger is an emotion that many of us have been taught to disown. Angry men have been a problem in our world. Instead of learning how to help them process that anger, we chose to vilify both the anger and the men who carry it. And in doing so, we taught men to disown their anger, to distance themselves from it, to pretend it doesn't exist because it makes them undesirable or scary, or it's not woke, it's not friendly, it's barbaric. We have also taught women to disown their anger, because then you come across as a bitch, too demanding, too difficult to work with, you're not going to get promoted, no one's going to want to work with you. But when we don't allow our emotions to work their way through us, to be seen, heard, observed, and accepted, that energy gets worked out without our conscious awareness. If you find yourself in situations where your intentions are misunderstood or others perceive you in ways that feel opposite to what you intend, I invite you to get curious. Consider which emotions you may be holding that don't yet have a healthy outlet. What emotions have you been taught to disown that are working their way into situations at work, in your relationship, in your family, maybe with your children? What circumstances are you unconsciously creating in your own life to allow yourself to release the energy of that emotion you've been carrying silently? We all have them. The best thing you can do for yourself, your life, your team, your workplace, your relationships is to hold up that mirror and take a look at what's happening beneath the surface.